Hello and welcome to ProTrust Consulting. I'm Robert Cartmel, and this is a brief regarding trusts and their uses. What is a trust, how it's used, and the circumstances in which families might consider using them. So, how do we think of trusts? You will probably have heard of trust. You may have seen documents and that are called trusts. You may have will trusts. You may have undertaken those yourself. You may have been involved with family or friends who have trusts, the experiences of them, good and bad. So, what do you think a trust is? In my mind, I've been working with trusts for 25 years or more, and I really like their uses. I really like the structure. I like the concept. The concept in my mind, when you think of a trust, is something along the lines of either a protection box, a structure in which you might place assets to pass in an efficient and protected way to beneficiaries, usually family members. So a box, like an inanimate object, I suppose that is, where you might place assets, or in a more active way, you could consider it as a kind of version of the creator, an avatar, an entity, or version of the person who creates the trust. It is an entity that can survive the creator. So typically on a will, when the person dies, the trust continues and it operates according to the instructions of the creator. So you see on this slide, it says it can survive the creator and live for up to 125 years, which is in the UK, the maximum lifespan of a standard UK trust. So that concept, that entity, has the instructions from the creator as to how to deal and manage the assets of the creator. People are then required to oversee that process, and they are called the trustees. So, thinking of those two concepts of a box or a person instructed by the creator to carry out wishes, where are they used? What are they? Why are they used? And primarily, you think of trusts in connection with protecting assets. So, protecting in what way? So when you pass assets into a trust, you are really looking to protect them for your beneficiaries. And the things on the slide here, there's a lot of mention of the beneficiaries. For a start, inheritance tax is a key driver for people to create trusts. So if you pass the assets into a trust for a beneficiary, that trust can be the owner of the assets. And therefore, potentially the beneficiary's estate is not encumbered with the additional assets that come to it. So the trust is the owner, and therefore it doesn't add to the assets of the beneficiary. So that could provide the beneficiary with inheritance tax protection. Also, the person, the creator, if they do it during their lifetime and they gift assets into a trust, that might be for inheritance tax purposes as well. For the creator, it reduces the creator's estate, and provided that the creator is not a beneficiary and takes no benefit of the trust, after the 7-year period, the assets might fall out of the estate of the creator for inheritance tax. So tax is one rationale for creating trusts, and a very common one. Protecting those beneficiaries against outside claim or attack is another main driver for people using trusts. So trying to pass estate to a spouse and then children, and not anyone else. So that if there's an attack through a divorce, or the care fees erodes the assets, or someone goes insolvent, a trust gives a better structure for protecting for the beneficiary against those type of entities or positions. The other rationale for a trust is something that you probably think automatically: use a trust to protect a vulnerable person. And in that sense, someone who might suffer from disability or the inability to communicate their instructions and the inability to carry out sensible decision making on the assets. So protection for vulnerable beneficiaries is a key driver again for the creation of a trust, an entity that looks after funds for that person, but in a protected way, and the trustees then take over that responsibility. And then it says vulnerable beneficiaries on the slide. So who are vulnerable? I mean, people that don't suffer from disabilities and who are capable of taking their own decisions effectively are also vulnerable. They're vulnerable to the things that are in the sentence above in the slide: divorce claims, care fees, insolvency, and inheritance tax on their death. So trusts are widespread in their use because everyone receiving assets is potentially vulnerable to those assets being eroded. And the person creating the trust really wants the beneficiary to tunnel vision to the beneficiary. I want that person to receive the assets. And on their death, I'd like it to go down the line to the next person in the line, children of them. So at the bottom, I said crystallized gifting and succession arrangements. That is a massively key part of will trusts, particularly. If I die, I pass my estate to my wife and then my children. To achieve that, you need to have a trust arrangement. So they are widespread for gift making. And therefore, the simplicity of how trusts are created, they are created in many cases through wills. 90% of the wills that we do at Pro Trust Consulting are trust wills. And so that's a lot of wills. If that's repeated around the country, a lot of people will be doing trust wills to create those protected structures. But they can also equally be applicable during someone's life, particularly for gift making. I want to gift that property to my children, but actually I'm not ready for them to inherit it all, and there's no protection if they just have a straight gift. So I'd like to place it into trust. My wife and I can be trustees, and we are protecting the assets for the children, and as to when and how they might receive that benefit. And it's also providing potentially inheritance tax mitigation as well. So they're created on death or during lifetime. And what are the types of trusts that are around and what are commonly used? I've listed for that. Discretionary trusts are often the vehicle I'm thinking about most with trusts. So if I'm passing a property, like I was just saying, into a trust for my children, the structure is a discretionary trust because it provides the best protection for a beneficiary. No one beneficiary is entitled, and therefore if no one beneficiary is entitled, a third party can't say, that's your asset. That's your asset. No, it isn't. I'm one of many beneficiaries who could benefit. And that is a key element of discretionary trusts. So the trustees are entrusted with a set of instructions as to who out of those beneficiaries are going to receive and in what way. So it might be I give a life interest in my house and my estate to my wife, and then I'd like my estate passing to my children, but in a protected way, so such as a kind of loan structure for them, so that it comes back to pass down my generations. So the discretionary trust is a very common vehicle. It's the most common vehicle, I would say, in estate planning. Interest in possession trusts, life interests, are also common. Families putting up a family protection structure for their main asset, their property, will often involve a couple doing mutual life interests. It's not done for inheritance tax purposes because the life interest still means it's in the parent's estate, but their property is in a structure, a crystallized structure, to ultimately pass in a designated way down, say, to their children. And the life interests provide all the normal uses that people would want with a property and any other property that might be purchased if they sold the main property. And that is a very common structure, property trusts, and it crystallizes arrangements when people aren't in a vulnerable position. So that is another very common element. A bare trust is another type of trust. That's a more simple structure where somebody says, I'm holding, say, some money, but it's not mine. I hold it for somebody else specifically. No discretion, no life interests as such as I hold an asset for somebody else. And that creates a trust. And that's done usually under a deed that declares that the person holds the asset for somebody else. And I've listed also disabled persons trust. We may well create a trust for a particular vulnerable beneficiary, and that can have tax benefits for income tax and capital gains tax. So they're the usual types of trusts that you have. And we help in that process by giving the options for people making gifts and for tax planning and for structuring their estate planning. We usually start with a will review process because that provides all the information on the family, on the financial circumstances, so that we can assess the position for you. So it might involve thinking about inheritance tax planning, will trusts, and thinking, is anyone specifically vulnerable? Who might need to be protected? Is it someone who's struggling on a marriage and might need divorce protection? Is it someone who is unable to manage assets themselves, etc., etc.? So the key is to plan and not panic, to get matters underway with us, and we will help you structure this for the years to come and the ongoing review process. So that's a quick summary on trusts and their uses. So do come and see us, visit our website, protrustconsulting.co.uk, where there's lots more information on the planning process and how trusts are managed and administered along with estates. Thank you very much for listening. Take care.